Hello and welcome back to another of my Jeti videos. In very large models, with a lot of servos way far away from the receiver, it can be quite popular to run a bus system for connecting them all up, rather than lots and lots of individual servo cables. You might be familiar with some of them, things like Futaba S-Bus, in which you can have special S-Bus servos that plug straight into the bus and they know which bit of data they have to pick up for themselves. Or you have little junction boxes which will pick up the bus and convert it into a standard servo signal. Or power box systems, they do a bus which, a nice fat 3-wire system carrying the power and the data. And again, you have little junction boxes which you can put in part way or terminate. And again, they'll take all the data, convert it down to a standard servo signal, plug your servos into the little junction box. Also Emcotech with the DPSI 2018. I know you can do a very similar bus system with that, 3 big chunky cables, and again little junction boxes to plug your servos in, and the junction box converts the bus signal out to standard servo signals. Great. Did you know that you can do all of that within Jeti? You don't need to buy third-party equipment, and of course, because it's all within Jeti, it all appears in Device Explorer and is all totally programmable from there. No fiddling about with tiny little screens and 3-button switches and what have you. So I've been using just such a bus system on my English Electric Lightning, which I built from the Mick Reeves kit, for many years, and I'll explain a little bit why later. But what do I mean by a bus system? Well, I was going to show you my English Electric Lightning, but all the equipment's buried inside there, so I can't really show it properly. And lo and behold, a few days ago, my good friend John McNamara of jetstream.co.uk, a Jeti dealer, said to me, "Oh, I've got a spare Central Box 400 and a couple of Central Box 100s. You can do bus systems with those. Any chance you could do a video?" And I said, "Haha, I know exactly what you mean, John. Been doing it for years. Be delighted to do a video." So John has lent me the equipment to do it. And here we are. We're starting with a Central Box 400, but it could be a Central Box 200. If you've got a couple of the expander ports on outputs 14 and 15 spare, you can do it from there. All you lose is the power regulation that a Central Box 400 gives you. And the cable... Inactivity alarm. Oh, be quiet, dear. There's the little bus data cable out to a Central Box 100. And there is the other little bus cable out to the other Central Box 100. So imagine that's in the fuselage, that's in one wing, that's in the other wing. Could be down at the tail, whatever. However, Central Box 100s need power. You can't bring power for anything up to 8 servos on a Central Box 100 down that little cable there. So you have to provide it with a power source. There we go. And you're thinking, oh my God, I can't get that out in the wing. Okay, I'll leave it in the fuselage and feed it all the way out. And now I'm up to 4 batteries because I've got my 2 batteries feeding the Central Box 400. And I've got battery to feed out to each wing. No, you don't. What the Central Box 400 allows is that you can switch on these to be the same regulated voltage as all of these. There's voltage regulators in this, and you can turn it from 5 volts, anything up to the full LiPo voltage, and you can have it come out of these outputs too. So what I did in my Lightning was I took a feed out of here, or rather this one anyway, and sent that down to the tail along with that. So whereas other bus systems like PowerBox would have 3 cable system, so you have 2 powers in this data, with Jeti, yes, it's a 5 cable system because you're going to have your 2 power cables, but your third cable is only the tiny little servo wire. That's fine. How far can you run this bus system? Well, I've asked Jeti, and Jeti have said they have tested up to 2 meters, so they're happy with this cable from your CB400 or CB200 to be 2 meters long out to your central box 100. And let's say a central box 100 can have up to 8 servos attached to it. So you can hang off anything up to 16 servos far away. You can build in further redundancy, which is what I did with my Lightning. As you can see here, we've got the 2 receiver ports for our incoming receivers, but 4 EXT ports. And these, in your device explorer, can be set to be all sorts of things. You can set that one, for instance, to be a receiver for a 900 megahertz backup. But if you're not using that, you've got all 4 ports can be X-bus outputs if you want. Although, of course, if you're wanting to bring telemetry in, you'll have to use some of them for that. In my Lightning, I've only got one central box 100 down at the tail of the model, because there are 5 servos down there for the tail planes, rudder, the parachute cable release, and the parachute doors. And the Mick Reeves Lightning fuselage is, being a Lightning, fairly long. It splits into 2, so I've got a lot of connectors at the split, which have to be done up every time we assemble the model and then take it apart at the end of the day. And it occurred to me that just one connector, you're risking a lot of data on that one pin. That one pin goes faulty, you've lost all 5 servos. Whereas at least if I'd kept to 5 individual servo cables, if one of the elevator pins went faulty, at least I had the other elevator. I'd get some sort of semblance of control, although how much it would roll it would probably be disastrous anyway. The point is, the central box 100 has, as you can see, 2 receiver inputs. Haha! So what I did in the Lightning was I set 2 of these to be X-bus, and I took 2 data X-bus cables down to the tail through the connectors to the central box 100. And that means that at the junction of the fuselage, or the wing, or whatever you want, I've got 2 separate connectors, meaning 2 pins carrying the data. So should anything go wrong with the wire or the connectors, the pin's not working, I've got a bit of redundancy there. Didn't matter to me in the Lightning that I was running 2 of them, because I say it was only running to 1 central box, so I still had a couple of ports available for telemetry. So you don't have to, but the option is there. In this, I'm showing just one cabled connection. Okie dokie. And let's see how you get this all to work. Just make sure my little cradle doesn't fall down.
Inactivity alarm.
Okay, into menu, into Device Explorer. And I'm using RSAT receivers here, a pair of them in double path, but use whatever you like, whether you use a default and clone or double path with REX receivers, assists, RSATs, whatever. That's your job there. And of course, off there hangs the central box 400. And off the central box 400, because they're plugged into that again, are the 2 central box 100s, 1 and 2. Lovely. So we look at our central box 400, or this could be a central box 200, and you'd use expander ports 1 and 2 to output your X-bus data. We look in here, I think it's in general settings. Here we are, expander settings. So we've got EXT 1, 2, 3, and 4, and they can be variously set for different things. Expander, an X-bus, or a receiver. And if we look down here, expander or X-bus. In this one, expander, Jeti box X-bus. Expander would be for things like your telemetry inputs. Now then, so we've set EXT1 and EX2 as X-bus, and that's the ones I've plugged my cables in to the central box 100s. So let's go and look at the central box 100s. Take a look in the first one, and we don't need to set anything into it to tell it that it's getting X-bus in, because we've plugged it into the socket called RX1. And RX1 just will be expecting a receiver signal of some sort, PPM or XBus. So there's nothing to set there. Although do set your output period for your servos. Remember, they're not always digital. There we go. So I've got nice analog servo there. Set it for that. The expander setting, EXT for Jeti box. I don't need anything in there. Now, I've set this up. You just do the same for Central Box 100 there. I've set this up as a very basic model. And if we look in the servo assignment, there we go. Very simple. Okay, doke. But we're running on 24 channels because what I did was came way down here and I set channel 17 to be elevator and channel 24 to be aileron. And that automatically, just by assigning those channels above 16, bumped the whole system into the 24 channel mode. We have a look in advanced properties, wireless modes trainer. There we go. The 24 channel multi-mode active. All I had to do was assign a servo to a channel above number 16 and bing, that switches on itself. Okay. So how do I get those channels out of the respective central boxes? Because if we go into them, this is where servo output mapping comes in. You might have wondered what it's for. This is it. If we look at the Central Box 100, it's just following the standard thing. Channel 1 must come out on pin 1, channel 2 on pin 2, da-da-da-da-da, and it's got 8 pins. There we go. And it's got an out-in pin, but it's got 8 servo sockets. So how am I going to get the elevator on, what was it, channel 17 out of, let's say, socket 7 on this one? And how am I going to get the aileron on channel 24 out of, say, socket 7 on the other one? Well, this is it. You just pick your sockets here and tell it which one you want. So we go into there, scroll down. This is our incoming channels. There we are. Ooh, I do that. And now pin 7 on that central box is going to output channel 17 from the transmitter. And so I would just go through each of my pins, telling it which one I want. And they don't have to be in numerical sequence. You know, I could set that to incoming channel 23 and that one to incoming channel 7. You just set them to whatever you want. It is so flexible. Now let's look at the other central box. My servo output mapping. I've plugged the aileron servo into out pin 7, so let's choose that. There we go, channel 24. Okay, now let's prove that this works. It could be a bit embarrassing if it doesn't. I'm now going to move the elevator stick, because we've assigned this was central box 100 number 1. We've assigned out pin 7 to channel whatever it was with the elevator. Does it work? Yes! Look at that. Just to prove that the other one's not working. There we go. Now this one should respond to aileron. There we go. And that one doesn't. So now we've got ourselves a lovely bus system, totally configurable within Device Explorer. One other thing that's very important. When you're setting the fail-safes, the Central Box 100s must have the fail-safe set in them. Let me explain why. If you were to go into Central Box 400 and you come down to Servo Failsafe and you set all your fail-safes in there, right the way up to channel 24, and you tell it, you know, save set the fail-safe positions now, that's great. But that is only going to affect fail-safe on these outputs here, on your 400 or your 200, because fail-safe is not carried through XBus. XBus data basically takes the incoming receiver signal from the transmitter and passes it straight out on XBus. It doesn't set fail-safes, and it doesn't muck about with servo timings. So your servo timing, your auto or 10, 15, 20 milliseconds, and your fail-safe have to be done in the individual central box. Not a problem, because you set it just like you would in the CB400 or 200. Go to that central box, servo fail-safe, enable it, set your delays. It'll show each of your out pins. You set them just to fail-safe as you normally would, set your fail-safe positions, and you're good to go. And there you are. You have a lovely distributed bus system, totally contained within Jeti, totally programmable from Device Explorer, no messing about with third-party options, third-party screens and programming buttons and what have you. So I hope that's been of help to you.